You are listening to the Great to Talk podcast by the Great Western Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. In this episode, we're going to hear how the care we provide has helped care for a patient with Huntington's, which has touched the life of one of our members of staff.
My name's Emma. I have written a chapter in a book called Huntington's Disease Heroes, which is a book full of chapters about different stories within the HD community. My mum works for the Great Western Hospital, and she's been a source of advice and support throughout the whole Huntington's journey.
My name's Jo Horton. I work for the Community Rehab team as a rehab assistant, and I've done that for nearly 16 years. Love my job. I work alongside the physios and the occupational therapists. I go out to patients and see them at home, and I literally go out and do assessments for patients that have just been discharged from hospital. So I go out to their homes, decide whether they need therapy, equipment, care.
My dad tested positive for HD back in 2014, and I then got tested in 2016 and is fortunately gene negative, so I've sort of threw myself into caring for Dad when he needed me. The disease itself is horrible, and it's progressive, so it's constantly changing, so you never really know what you're going to face. With my dad, it started off by affecting his mood a lot, so I always used to think he was angry at me and he would used to lash out and say horrible and nasty things, but you'd have to sort of, which was really horrible at the beginning, but you'd sort of have to try and remember that it wasn't him. And then it sort of progressed on to more physical issues, and I was having to help him with his personal care and things like that. I felt like it was my duty, and I had to as his daughter, but I knew that he trusted me, so it felt like a nice thing to do. Caring for him, I almost felt like it sounds strange, but it brought us closer together, definitely, even though the dynamics of the relationship changed. It definitely brought us together, and it's almost like a bond, which I'm grateful for.
So when my children's dad was diagnosed, I was just there as support. But yeah, I was there to support my children. I would give them advice as far as what I know with my role. If I didn't know, then I would go and find out for them. I did go and speak to people that I work with that I know have actually treated patients with Huntington's to find out what was the norm.
We've had occupational therapists from Mum's team and physiotherapists come out to see Dad, and they've been able to come out and do assessments and then write letters of recommendation that I can then take to the social worker and try and fight his case, as I was trying to get him more support and more help. It just makes life easier, and just already a stressful situation, it just takes that little bit of stress away, being able to have it on hand. I've said this to Mum before, but I actually shared on my Instagram page that when we had the physiotherapist come out, he actually did the assessment with Dad and then turned around to me and said, "And how are you?" And I was like, oh, it's really strange because no one's really sort of asked, if I'm honest. It's obviously always about Dad, which in my mind is the way it should be. But yeah, I don't really think about how it affects me, to be honest. I just get on with it.
Coming to work, well, it keeps me going to start with. It definitely keeps me sane. And knowing that you're working for like the NHS and helping people. And I like the fact that we see changes in the patients that we treat. You set an end goal, and probably 8 or 9 times out of 10, the patient would achieve that goal. And it's nice to see them progress. It's just lovely to know that what you've done, it might not be very much that you've done. Sometimes it's just a an ear and they just want to talk to somebody, and that plays a big part. Just going and sitting and having a chat with somebody. You don't necessarily have to be going in there to do your therapy, and they quite like just a chat to be able to offload a little bit. But yeah, seeing them going from maybe lying in bed for 6 months to then getting them up and walking, it's a massive reward. It's tough watching what Emma's going through, but yeah, I just like to be a support for Emma, and I am so proud of her. Emma and I do tend to sort of rely on each other.
So I'm very grateful for the NHS being able to support us and help us, definitely. As I say, the OTs and physios have had a massive part to play in getting Dad the support he needs.
This was the story of our rehabilitation assistant Joanne and her daughter Emma, whose lives have been touched by Huntington's disease. Find out more about the care we can provide by visiting www.gwh.nhs.uk. More episodes of Great to Talk are available wherever you find your podcast, and click subscribe to automatically download future episodes.